For the past several, I would say maybe 4 years, we have had a task assigned to us. It's a privilege, by a group that organizes gifts at holiday times for families who cannot really afford to get too many gifts. And this year we got a prize because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I'm wrong, don't correct me. No math correction. And this, you can read it yourself, but the sign-up sheet is in the grand ballroom. That's the room that we have refreshments in. Most people call it the Oneg room. It sounds ever so much classier to call it the grand ballroom, don't you think? It just has a ring to it. Anyway, there's a sign-up sheet in there. More than one person can sign up for kids. And you got boys, you got girls, you got parents. And it would be, giving things to other people does more for you than it really does for them. I have found that to be true in my life. So, I highly urge you to give back. All right. Sunday, and we have perfect weather for it. Is Sunday going to be nice? I didn't look at the weather for Sunday. Oh, thank you, God. Not too hot, not too cold. We're having our fall picnic. Excellent. Actually, more winter. This Sunday, it starts at noon. You go up Lakeshore Drive here, all the way through the town of Safety Harbor, and then further north. And I'd say about 3 miles from here, could be more. And you will come to Philippi Park, look for Shelter 1. There are signs. Bring something to eat yourselves, bring something to share. They have charcoal, and usually they have the fires going. However, if some people want to build a fire, feel free to follow all safety rules and build your own. I don't know. All right, next. See, it's December. We got stuff. We got a lot of stuff to do. So get with the program, which is come to our stuff. All right. See, it's very easy program. Here we have Hanukkah party. That's a week from Saturday, a week from tomorrow night. That is always great, because bring your Hanukkah, your Hanukkah menorah. Bring one, and you can light it, and we light them all together. We put them on a table, and it's really magnificent to see the glow. And Art, who is our local fire marshal, no kidding, he gets nervous, but it's okay. We've done this for many years, and there has been no danger so far that we've known of. If you're interested in Rishon, I'll allow you to read this yourself. Rishon is the Hebrew word for first, and by that we designate the holiday that remarks upon Yeshua's first coming, the first coming of the Messiah. So we call it Rishon, and you can read about there. We do traditionally have a small, quiet service on Rishon Eve, if you catch my drift, December 24th, in the evening. What time is it? 10 p.m. You can eat your dinner, you can get all cleaned up, and you can come. It's not a long service, but it is a lovely service, and it ends in candlelight. So if you're interested, please read that and ask questions. Always ask questions if you don't know. Many people are here to answer the questions. Whether they're the correct answers, we're not even going into that. But there are plenty of people you can ask questions of if you don't know about something. Okay, what else have I missed that's extremely important? Weekend retreat in January. So we're saving some things for January. Over Martin Luther King weekend. Do we have any spots left? It looked pretty full when I looked at the list in the foyer.
All the rooms are taken.
All the inside motel rooms are taken.
We just have campsites right now.
If you would like campsites. If you would like to come for the day, that might be fun. Like Sunday, that would be a great day to come. Would they have to pay a small fee to eat with everybody?
Yeah, it's a small one, but I'd have to.
There's a small fee for the food that you would eat if you wanted to come for the day on Sunday. So that's another thing to look forward to, and more information is on this sheet. Game night, we're not even getting to that. All right. I do want to say something about the further distant future. It has come to my attention that I've heard the pleas of people in the congregation, and some people outside the congregation, that they would like to begin to learn Hebrew. If that's true of you, and if you think you might want to do this, our plans right now is for me to start it off. You're learning the adventure of Hebrew learning, your path along the road to Hebrew Town. I will start our weekend. We have a weekend that we kick it off with. It's called the Hebrew Blast-Off. The Hebrew Blast-Off is 3 hours on a Saturday, 3 hours on the next day, Sunday. And then you're ready to start taking the language, Hebrew, if you want. The weekend is for you. If you are not an expert at reading Hebrew letters, that weekend is for you. Do you have to come to both days of the weekend? Yes, because it doesn't, you need both halves of the Aleph Beit. Do you see where that's going there? So if you miss day one, you won't have the first part, and you'll be dazed and confused, and we'll have to sit you down and give you, I don't know, something to calm your nerves, like a bowl of ice cream or something. So that will be coming up in February. So if you're interested, I'm giving you fair warning now. Even if you don't know if you're interested in it, I will tell you that first weekend, the Hebrew Blast-Off weekend, is for anybody, even if you don't want to continue on for Hebrew. It's for anybody who's not sure how to sign and recognize the significance of the Hebrew letters, okay? It's for adults. This is not for children, it's for adults. By adult, I mean someone over age 12. Because I don't want to have to discipline anybody, and you don't want to either. The Hebrew letters will be coming at you so fast you won't have time to yell at a child. So keep that in mind. It's coming if there's enough demand. Okay. All right. Well, I'm exhausted now after all those announcements, and it took more time than actually singing, so this is not going well. Anyway, December is tomorrow, actually in a couple hours, according to certain calendars. And the time has either gone so slowly that I can't even remember last week was Thanksgiving, or alternately, it's gone so fast that last week was May. But I don't know if you feel those kinds of slowdowns in time passing or quickening of time passing. Maybe it's just old people who are grandparents, where it seems like the grandchildren were just babies, and now they're big and arguing with us. So that it's really, time is relative to all things. We're very thankful that we have a great congregation. We're very thankful that you came tonight. This is beginning of the Friday nights when there's stuff you have to do, concerts and parties and dinners and all that. We appreciate your attendance, and we appreciate remembering the blue boxes in the back, which are for the maintenance of the cemetery, and the cemetery. We gotta go clean up the cemetery. Extremely good. It's been a long week already. For the purposes of our building, and for also, in a step away, the seminary also benefits from when we benefit. We thank you for coming. I just want to leave you with a word of advice. Please, please, never, never buy flowers from a monk in the forest. Never do that. We are trying to prevent florist friars. Thank you for that.
And I have absolutely no idea how to follow that. All right. Whether last week was May or November, as you had reflected on for you, we are reminded of the fact that our God is the God who is a shield for our ancestors, but also for us. And so we reflect on that as we join on pages 10 to 13. Jacob leads and we respond as we remember God's commitment to us and his protection over us.
Maged Avot bidvaro, v'chaye metim b'ma'amaro, ha'el hakadosh ha'en kamohu, ha'meniach le'amo, v'yom Shabbat kadosho. כי בעם רצה להניח להם, לפניו נעבוד ביראה והפחד, ונודה לשמו בכל יום. תמיד בעין הברכות, אל ההודעות אדון השלום, מקדש השבת ומברך שבי, ומדיח בי קדושה, לגמד ושני גודק. זכר למעשה בראשית. זכר למעשה בראשית. With his word he was a shield to our fathers. By his decree he will give life to the dead. The holy God, with whom no other can compare, who provides his people rest each holy Sabbath day. In reverence and awe, we will serve him daily, and every day we will thank him suitably. He is the God to whom all thanks are due, the Lord of peace, who makes the Sabbath special. He blesses the seventh day for his people, to give them joy and remind them of creation.
He provides his people rest each holy Sabbath day, blesses it for his people to give them joy and remind them of creation. So we are reminded of one who is the creator. He's also the one who watches over us and has committed himself to us and made us his people. Shabbat's the sign of that, and we remind ourselves of exactly that as we light the Shabbat lights this evening.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvato, v'tzivanu ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, our God, King of our universe, who's given us the commands to fight the enemies of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvato v'tzivanu lehayot or el goyim v'natan lanu Yeshua Meshikenu ha'or la'olam. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of our universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments and commanded us to be a light for the nations and gave us Yeshua, our Messiah, the light of the world. Shabbat Shalom.
Our Tehillah, the Brit Shah portion is the bottom of pages 136, 137. As we respond there, we remind ourselves God is the one who has answered the prayers of our people down through the ages. He has been exactly what we said he was, a shield for our ancestors as he's rescued us from the hand of our enemies. He did so to enable us to serve him without fear. And that's especially important as we begin Hanukkah this weekend. He rescued us from the hand of our enemies so as to enable our people to serve him without fear. So, he has come and has liberated his people. Baruch Adonai Elohei Yisrael, ki pakad et amo, vayishlach lo kedut vayarem lanu, keren Yeshua, v'veit David avdo. And we respond together.
Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, because he has come and has redeemed his people. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David. As he said through his holy prophets of long ago, salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore to our father Abraham, to rescue us from the hand of our enemies and to enable us to serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all our days.
He has come and has liberated his people through the horn of salvation, and the one who is called the horn of salvation, Keren Yeshua appropriately, is the one who now sits enthroned in the heavenly realms as the rabbis of old imagined the Messiah to be. And so he guarantees our destiny forever. We enter that throne room scene as we respond on pages 40 and 41.
Elohim asher diber mikadem pe'amim rabot ubidrakim rabot el havot beyad hanevi'im diber aleinu be'acharit hayamim ha'elei Yad haben Asher Sam Leo Reish Kol U'yado Gam Asa et ha'olamim U'zohar kevodo V'tzelem atzmuto V'nosei kol bidvaro Rav ha'gvura U'lecha she'asa Tihur chatayim Yashav limin ha'agdula. In the past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets, and many times in various ways. But now, in the end of days, he has spoken to us by the Messiah, his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory, and the flawless manifestation of his reality. He sustains all things by his powerful word. After he made atonement for sins, he sat down in the place of authority beside the majesty in heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and pleasant, feared and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever and ever.
Last paragraph reminds us that our God has done some wonderful things for us, and so we express our gratitude. We continue to express our gratitude in one of the more traditional forms, Kaddish, pages 28 to 30. Now, this is traditionally done when we're remembering people who have been close to us, whether friends or family, that we have lost. And so it's a reminder, even in those kind of circumstances, that These are opportunities or reminders that our God is still close to us and holds us. Now, if you are remembering lost loved ones, we invite you to do the traditional thing, which is to join us in standing. In addition, we have been asked to do Kaddish, especially for the brother of Joe Cook, who very suddenly passed away just earlier this week. If you happen to know Joe and Chrissy, you are part of their extended family, so you're invited to stand as well. So, Jacob leads, we respond, pages 28 to 30. Stand if it is appropriate for you to do so.
יתגדל השם רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברי קירותי וימלך מלכותי וחייכון וביומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו
Amen. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולם יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמד קודשה בריחו לעילה בין כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רב מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. Glorified and sanctified be his great name in the world which is created according to his will. May he cause the reign of his kingdom in your lifetime and in your days, and in the life of all the house of Israel, speedily, yes, soon, and say,
Amen.
Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and forever, eternally. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he, who is high above, far above all blessings and hymns, and praises and consolations which are spoken in the world, and say, Amen. May there be great peace from heaven and life for us and for all Israel, and say, Amen. He who makes peace in the heavenly realms, may he make peace for us and for all Israel, and say,
Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated.
Especially in times like we just reflected on, we are reminded yet again, even then, he is a shield for our ancestors. And so we continue to reflect on that and express our gratitude to our God as we remind ourselves, Emet Elohei Olam, top of pages 42 and 43, that the God of the world, yes, is our King, but he is the rock of Jacob, the shield of our salvation. That becomes our response. We will do this responsively. After I lead you through the opening line in Hebrew, I ask that you respond with the first paragraph in English. I'll take the second paragraph and then join you in the third, which will be the last paragraph we do. Emet Elohei Olam Malkeinu Tzur Yaakov Magen Yeshenu. And you respond.
It is true, the God of the world is our King. The rock of Jacob is the shield of our salvation. From generation to generation he endures, and his name endures. And his throne is established, and his kingdom and his faithfulness forever endure.
And his word lives and endures. It is faithful and desirable forever. It is from everlasting to everlasting. It is for our ancestors and for us. It is for our children, and in fact, it is for our generations and all generations of the seed of Israel, his servants.
The help of our fathers are you from ages past, a shield and a savior to their children after them, in all generations and generations. In the heights of the world is your dwelling, and your judgments and your righteousness extend to the ends of the earth.
Our reading portion this evening is just section 6, or paragraph 6, pages 76 to 79. We rise now facing Jerusalem, the direction of the ark, as we say, we thank you, O Lord our God, that you are our rock, our shield, that saves through every generation, which is why we place our hands into his care. That's our response. Make it yours. Because you are our shield that saves through every generation, we are always in your keeping. Which is why all the living shall thank you and praise your name faithfully. Baruch atah Adonai, atuv shilcha uchamna'a le'odot. Blessed are you, O Lord. Your name is good, and it's pleasant to give you thanks. You may be seated. As we've been reflecting on the greatness and the graciousness of our God, we should also have come to understand something of his awesomeness. And so we raised the question, as we do traditionally, Mikamoka, who is like you, O Lord among the gods, pages 44 and 45. Jacob will lead us in the musical refrain, first time through, and then you get to respond the second time through. It's part of how we praise our exalted God, and we bless he who is to be blessed. Moses and the people of Israel sang a song to you with great joy, and we now join them in that song, in the middle of page 45. As they all said, we now all say, who is like you,
O Lord among the gods? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders?
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלאי. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלאי.
And now on pages 88 and 89, we answer that very question as we respond to Jacob as he leads us in Ein Kamoka. Truly, there is none like you, O Lord, among the gods. You are glorious in holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders.
אין כמוך באלים אדוני, אין כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלאי, עושה פלאי.
There is none like you among the gods, my Lord, and there is nothing that compares to your deeds. Your kingdom is a kingdom that endures for all eternity, and your sovereignty extends throughout all generations.
Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai Malach le'olam va'ed. The Lord reigns, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign throughout eternity.
The Lord will bless his people with peace. The Lord reigns. He needs to do that exact thing through each and every one of our lives. And we acknowledge that now as we stand yet again to respond facing Jerusalem on pages 34 to 39, and we say, yes, Lord, you reign. I want you to reign in my life, throughout my life. Pages 34 to 39.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed, Ve'afta et Adonai Elohecha, V'chol levacha, U'chol nafshecha, U'chol me'odecha, Ve'hayu ha'dvarim ha'ele, Asher anuchi mitzavcha vayom ad levavecha, V'shinantam levanecha, V'dibartam v'shivtecha v'betecha, Uvektecha v'derek, Uvshachbecha uvkumecha, Ukshavtam le'ot al-yedecha, Ve'hayu letotavot be'yinenecha, Uktavtam al mezuzot betecha, Uvisharecha. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Blessed be he whose glorious kingdom is eternal. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your life, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates.
The Lord shall reign forever. We look forward to that time that we reflected on a few minutes ago and confirmed for ourselves. We look forward to that time as we respond with pages 88 and 89, Vayeshev and Soa. It is in fact the time when the Torah will go forth from Zion, the word of the Lord, out of Jerusalem, throughout the entire world.
Vayehi ben Zoharon, Vayomer Moshe, Kum Adonai vayafutzu oevacha, Veyanusu mesanecha mibanecha, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ulevar Adonai miYerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. And it came to pass, whenever the ark went forward, Moses would say, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee from before you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in holiness gave the Torah to his people Israel.
Now the people to whom he gave the Torah in its holiness, his people now respond in gratitude and in commitment. page 133, is our response.
The ark now unveils its treasure.
To our eyes and minds and hearts,
Inside the scroll of Torah stands.
it stands there with all its richness and wisdom.
As we listen, voices speak, the voices of our ancestors.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph, and Moses.
O God, they bring us your instructions for us.
Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and Miriam speak to us as well.
O God, they move us to respond to your promises to us.
We are grateful for your words, the words of Torah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord calls.
We will hear your words that we may learn them, love them, live them.
What does the Lord require of you? To fear him, love him, serve him, and walk in all his ways.
All the Lord has said, we will do.
He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless John, may he bless Matt, may he bless Jenny, may he bless Celia, and may he bless Jacob, who have come up to honor God and the Torah. May the Holy One bless them and their families and send blessing and prosperity on all the work of their hands. Vahu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah. Amen. Bless the Lord who is blessed.
Bless the Lord who is blessed forever and ever.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us the Torah. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megolei aviv be'eretz Canaan ele toldot Yaakov Yosef ben shvasrei shana haya ro'et echav batzon והוא נער את בני בלהה ואת בני זלפה נשי אביו ויבא יוסף את דיברתם רעה אל אביהם וישראל אהב את יוסף מכל בניו כי בן זקנים הוא לו, Ve'asa lo ketonet pasim. Vayiru echav ki oto ahav avihem mikol echav ve'yisnehu oto v'lo yachlu dapro l'shalom. You may be seated. Okay, so Jacob lived in the land where his father sojourned in the land of Canaan, and these are the generations or the chronicles of Jacob. Joseph was a youth of 17 years old, and he was tending the flock with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Jacob loved, it's Israel, but Israel is Jacob. Israel loved Joseph more than all his sons because he was the son of his old age. And so he made for him what's generally translated coat of many colors, probably something like multicolored tunic or robe. And his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, and they hated him and were not able to speak to him peacefully. So this week's parsha is again packed full, just like most of the parshas in Genesis, since it covers a lot of time and really a short book. But it is packed full this week, and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, it's not the happiest of parshas or parashiot out of Bereshit. There's a lot of tragic type events that happen during this parsha. First and foremost, Joseph, of course, being sold into slavery. And then during the next chapter, we see the incident with Judah and his two sons, and then Tamar. And then it goes back to the story of Joseph, and we think he's doing pretty good in Potiphar's house, only to be framed for something he didn't do and thrown in prison. And then things are looking a little bit better in prison, and then, the cupbearer forgot about him. And that's how the parsha ends, and it's like, what? So, it's not the happiest of parshas, but of course, we all know that each parsha, every text in our Torah is teaching us something. So I try to pull out something, glean something from every parsha that we read. And, one of the main themes, of course, is trusting God because He is watching out for us. He's taking care of us. It may not seem like it, and we go through trials and tribulations. It's we think, what the heck is going on here? But even though that's a good main theme for this parsha, I think the most important theme to take out of this parsha, at least I believe this, we can talk about it later if you disagree, but is not to lose heart, not to get so that you're hardened by the experiences that we go through. It could be easily done. I mean, there's a lot of bad things that happened to Joseph in this parsha, and he could have hardened his heart. And sorry to spoil the next parsha, but at the end of next parsha, he says, what you intended for harm, God intended for good. So he kept faith. He kept you know, faith that God was, even though it was a tough time right now, he was where he needed to be. And I think that's important to glean from this week's Parsha, that yes, we need to have faith, but we need to make sure that we don't harden our hearts from these situations that life throws at us, and even though they may be hard. So anyway, I hope that helps. Have a great Shabbat, and I'm looking forward to Hanukkah coming up. Shabbat Shalom.
Reading from Genesis 37, 5 through 9. Joseph had a dream which he told his brothers, and that made them hate him all the more. He said to them, "Listen, while I tell you about this dream of mine. We were tying up bundles of wheat in the field when suddenly my bundle got up by itself and stood upright. Then your bundles came, gathered around mine, and prostrated themselves before it." His brothers retorted, "Yes, you will certainly be our king. You'll do a great job of bossing us around." And they hated him still more for his dreams and for what he said. He had another dream which he told his brothers. "Here I had another dream, and there were the sun, the moon, and 11 stars prostrating themselves before me."
I'm reading from Genesis 40, 9 through 15. Then the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. "In my dream, there was in front of me was a vine, and the vine had 3 branches. The branches budded, and then it suddenly began to blossom, and finally clusters of ripe grapes appeared. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, so I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and he gave the cup to Pharaoh. Joseph said to him, 'Here's its interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. You will be giving Pharaoh his cup as you used to when you were his cupbearer. But remember me when it goes well with you, and show me kindness, please, and mention me to Pharaoh so that he will release me from this prison. For the truth is that I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and here too I have done nothing wrong that would justify putting me in this dungeon.'"
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and life everlasting planted in our midst. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
You know, Joseph never had the opportunity to hear the voice of the Lord. Our ancestors did, as they stood before him. And in that sense, we get to also, because we have now heard the words of the Lord. So like our ancestors stood before him to receive his words, we now do stand before him to acknowledge that these are his words. The Zot HaTorah, pages 98 and 99, that's our response. Page 95, should you need the transliteration.
V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai be'ad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with the Lord's commands by the hand of Moses.
You may be seated.
Words that come from God should impact our lives. That's why they're called Etz Chaim, a tree of life, waiting to take deep root in us. And our response should be then, renew our days as of old. So we respond on pages 96 and 97 with Etz Chaim.
Etz Chaim hi lamachzikim ba v'tomchei ha-meushav derachei ha-darchei Noam v'chol nativotei ha-shalom Hashivenu Adonai elecha bein hashuva Chadesh Yameinu kikedem Hashivenu Adonai elecha bein hashuva Chadesh Yameinu kikedem A tree of life it is to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us, Lord, to you, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
And now, more fully renewed, we stand before him as his priests, or as his priests of old did, and we respond on pages 98 and 99 with Uvnucho Yomar. Please stand and respond.
Uvnucho Yomar, Shuba Adonai Rivavot Alfei Yisrael. When the ark rested, Moses would say, Return, O Lord, to the myriads of Israel's families. Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Messiah. Ba'avor David avdecha al teshev pnei mishikecha. Ki lekach tov natati lachem torati al ta'azovu. I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah.
Well, they want to bring it.
I see some of you picked up on what we're supposed to be doing now, which is saying hello to those around you. But if you did not pick up on it, it's too late. It's now time to sit back down. Shabbat school is excused. Dr. Patrice and I have talked about the story of Joseph on several occasions, the story which begins tonight. And in fact, it's a story that spans the parashiot of the next 4 weeks. Moreover, I should say that Dr. Patrice has even written the drash on this week's portion for the UMJC website in years past, and has taught on Joseph in a number of synagogues, including our own. The fact is that the Joseph story is almost as badly misunderstood as the Jacob story, which precedes it. Unfortunately, people tend to read their own perspectives into this story instead of trying to draw out of the text the lessons that are there. Now, in that drash that I mentioned, the written one on the UMJC website, she did a superb job of unwrapping the passage for this week. And I want to build on that and pick up the rest of the Joseph story as well as its lessons for us. Now, back then she wrote, and I quote, "The story of Joseph relates a lengthy and layered story of a man whom many modern readers dislike, at least at first. Joseph, like his father Jacob, is considered despicable." I'm not talking about the minions. If you didn't get that, sorry. Both are scolded by modern scholars, theologians, teachers, and clerics for their supposed moral failings and their lack of ethical standards during their earlier years. Both are portrayed in their later lives after long exiles full of suffering as having finally, quote, learned their lesson, end quote, about their earlier misspent youth. In their old age, they are now deemed praiseworthy patriarchs based on their hard-won understanding of all those things that they had done wrong and which resulted in their, quote, changed, end quote, attitudes. Except, did they really fail in their dealings with others at the beginning of their stories? Were both father and son guilty of all the youthful indiscretions they are commonly accused of? Not necessarily. Many of these youthful indiscretions are supplied by the interpreters of the text in question and are not based on actual information that we are given in the Hebrew text. Looking at Jacob's and Joseph's lives based only on the words that are actually in the text can bring a different picture, not only to the lives of these great men of God, but also to our own, end quote. Now, in this particular drash that I've quoted from, Patrice focused on the early part of the story as it was read for you. I want that to look, I want to hop in just a little later to fill out the story just a bit. In the portions upcoming, we'll get to the place where the final curtain is descending on Jacob's life. And as it does, one agonizing question remains. Why didn't Joseph contact his mourning and aged father during the 22 years he spent in Egypt? Now, why did I hop to the end, like I just did? Because part of the grief that Joseph gets is not just for the beginning of the story, but for later on in the story. So I want to bring all that grief together, so to speak. So, if it wasn't possible for him to contact his father during the first years of his time in Egypt, when he was in prison or was a household servant, why didn't he make some effort to send word after he'd become the grand prime minister of Egypt? He might have at least dispatched a messenger to check on Jacob's welfare. Or, when his brothers arrived in Egypt the first time to purchase food, he could have informed his father through them that he was alive and prospering. How do we account for Joseph's silence in the face of his father's suffering? In the 13th century, there was a very important rabbi in our traditions, the Ramban Nachmanides, one of my favorites, by the way. He provides an explanation, one which also attempts to make more sense for the various ploys and ruses Joseph uses. Thank you for some of you picking up on that. I appreciate that anytime. That he uses with regard to his brothers. When the brothers first appear in Egypt, the Torah records this for us, chapter 42. And this is critical to understand the story. Remember, you read what's in the text. And Joseph remembered his dreams. Okay? He remembered his dreams. That becomes critical for understanding the rest of the story. The dreams he had dreamed concerning them, and so he said to them, "You are spies." Now, the Ramban suggests that Joseph did not reveal himself to his father or his brothers because he wanted to wait until the 11 stars, all his brothers, in harmony together with the son, his father, would accept his leadership in accordance with the dream, not that he had, but that God gave him. So he had to evaluate the responses and the character of his brothers at this point in time. In other words, was this the right time to say something? Or to reflect on it a little differently, was this God's timing? But such behavior on his part, many have suggested, and you can understand, this hardly reflects the forgiveness and the sensitivity we might ordinarily expect from someone who is viewed as a paragon of piety. The various tricks he practices on his brothers and the unnecessary pain he inflicts on his father as a result of his silence can hardly be justified by a commitment to the details of God's revelation through a dream. However, in order to truly understand the meaning of the biblical text, it is important to bear in mind the profound jealousy the brothers had harbored toward Joseph. After all, they had placed him in a pit filled with snakes and scorpions, and they sold him to a foreign country as a slave in order to get rid of him forever and as quickly as possible. And before selling him, remember the story, they had seriously discussed killing him. For all Joseph knew, they still wished him dead, or even worse. They had transferred their evil designs to Benjamin, the other son of Rachel. So, if Joseph revealed himself to his father, and therefore to his brothers, before he had an opportunity to properly test or evaluate their character, attitudes, and remorse, an even greater tragedy might well have ensued. Possible scenarios could go something like this. Jacob would condemn the sons for having deceived him about Joseph. The brothers, in self-justification, would then condemn Jacob for having supposedly deceived his own father Isaac, as well as for his uncalled-for favoritism towards Joseph, which had caused the jealousy to flourish in the first place. And maybe they might even have harmed Benjamin. So, a hopelessly divided family would then have come to Egypt with Jacob. Joseph, perhaps this time together with Benjamin, would then have to face the sneering accusations and continuing anger of his brothers, who would now be even more jealous than ever. Look, we should remember that the message of the dream God gave to Joseph had been that his brothers, together with his father, would accept Joseph's leadership. It was a dream of unity and harmony. Therefore, Joseph understands that he can reveal himself to his father and bring his entire family to Egypt only after he is certain that the brothers have truly repented and learned their lesson, that their hatred and their rage, which caused him to be tossed into a pit, that hatred and rage would not reappear and so disrupt God's purpose. From this perspective, all of Joseph's actions now become understandable. Notice what happens. He initially charges his brothers with spying and so imprisons them. After all, they had called him a spy and had imprisoned him in a pit. He then makes them return to Jacob without one of their brothers, Shimon, as they had done when they returned to Jacob without Joseph initially. And then he requests that they bring back Benjamin. Now, as Joseph had suspected, the brothers make the connection between the threat to Benjamin's life, in other words, another favorite son of the same mother. They make the connection between the threat to Benjamin's life and their own previous threat to Joseph's life, which is why they then unexpectedly confess their previous guilt, chapter 42, verse 21, but we are guilty because of our brother Joseph, whose distress we saw when he entreated us, and we did not listen. Now, Joseph knows that they have repented in theory. In other words, there's guilt, perhaps even remorse here. But he's not yet sure that they've truly learned their lesson, that they really have changed their attitude or their animosity. Therefore, listen to what he does. He initially treats Benjamin with favoritism. Sound familiar? But then he charges them all with thievery, insisting that Benjamin remain behind as his slave. They had turned Joseph into a slave. Would they now allow his brother to become one? Is the question that's hanging out there. Will the brothers jump at this opportunity to save their own skins while getting rid of the remaining favorite son of Rachel? Or will they act differently this time? When Judah, the very brother who had sold Joseph into slavery 22 years earlier, when Judah offers himself as a slave instead of Benjamin, Joseph then knows that his brothers have truly repented, and the text says, and he weeps. Only now is he ready to reveal himself to his father so that the dream can come true, for only now is he certain that his forgiveness will in fact bring about unity and reconciliation, not further division. So as the text tells us quite clearly, Joseph too is an appropriate heir of Abraham. And as the rabbis come to understand, he becomes a model for the Messiah. And so later, he appropriately dies with the covenant promises on his mouth. He says, when you get back, as God promised, make sure you take me with you. By the way, ascribing arrogance to Joseph is strongly opposed by the rabbinic tradition that observes that despite his power, Joseph retained his sense of humility. In one of the earlier Midrashim, the Midrashim are rabbinic texts that unfold, unwrap, often in a narrative kind of fashion, the stories and texts of Scripture. Okay? Having observed that, the Midrash observes that the rabbis claim that Joseph thought of himself as the least of the sons, both when he was a slave and also when he had ascended to power in Egypt. Furthermore, the rabbis of old give Joseph the superlative title of Yosef HaTzadik. In our parlance, we might say, Joe the Saint. Thank you. And some of you know some Joes who are definitely not saints, so we won't go there. A significant rabbi of the previous generation described, well, hold on, before that, let me fill this in just a little further. Whether this characteristic is for resisting Potiphar's wife, or for crediting God for his ability to interpret dreams, or for his rescue plan for Egypt and his great concern for the physical and psychological welfare of his family, in all these ways, Joseph earned the respect of the rabbis. Yosef HaTzadik. And then there's another point of admiration for Joseph. In all his great deeds, listen to this, he acts alone, which is why the great rabbi from the last generation, Soloveitchik, described him as a lonely man of faith. Think about that. A lonely man of faith. Think, as you reflect on the story, with whom can he appropriately share his faith in God, or take counsel, or get support or encouragement? With the brothers who had tried to murder him and then sold him into slavery? With his wife, the daughter of the priest of On, the god of Egypt, one of the gods of Egypt? With Pharaoh? Yet, for all of his isolation, Joseph is never shaken from his enduring faith. His enduring faith in God. Even when things took a number of wrong turns, as Jenny so appropriately reminded us of. Nor would it shake him from his dedication to moral conduct. Joseph does not hear from God in the same way as his ancestors did. His knowledge of God is the product of dreams and introspection. So it is not family, society, or even prophecy that establishes Joseph as a servant of God. He himself must develop what we would call his religious persona on his own. And in this, he's both extraordinary and imitatable. Looking back through scriptures, it seems that most of God's greatest displays of power stemmed from humble beginnings, just like Joseph in this story. Interestingly enough, we told some of his story last night in the class for the seminary and yeshiva. So yes, this is commercial time to get some of these wonderful stories before we unwrap them here on a Friday night. Take a class or two. Enough of the commercial. This Torah portion, which always occurs just before Hanukkah, speaks of this concept as well, the concept of God displays his power from humble beginnings. Joseph, remember, was sold as a slave, then jailed for a crime he did not commit. In time, he would rise to the second most powerful position in Egypt and would save his family. Those were humble beginnings. And those kind of humble beginnings reminded us not to lose faith, as Jenny talked about it tonight, even in difficult circumstances. It reminded us of some of the things we've looked at over the last couple weeks. The faith of our forefathers and our foremothers. Remember? Faith involves trusting God in and through his trials. Faith involves trusting God when we can't trace him or track him. And then a couple weeks ago we looked at against all hope. Remember, we're supposed to thank God in each and every situation. We are to thank God for everything. Because thanking God expresses trust. So my suggestion is to hop on the trust train. The engine is truth. It is fueled, the engine is fueled by trust. And then we just, pardon me for changing the metaphor, we just truck along. That's part of the story that's going on here. Don't lose faith. And yet, very appropriately for the reading at this particular time in our calendar, the story of Joseph and Hanukkah both have been viewed by our sages of old as picturing the Messiah and his era. So appropriately, they coincide on the calendar. And it is from the story of Joseph that the ancient rabbis, our sages, first began to call the Messiah who would come Ephraim, our righteousness, or the parallel phrase, Messiah ben Yosef, Messiah, son of Joseph. Why? Who is Ephraim? Oh, quickly. Thank you, son of Joseph. Okay. So Ephraim, our righteousness, Messiah ben Yosef. Now, they say that this Messiah would not be esteemed or recognized by the world, but would rather be despised. But rather would be despised. That's why during Hanukkah, the story of Joseph is so appropriate. It speaks of a rescuer, a liberator, and of his humiliation, as in fact was the situation of the Jewish people during the time of the original Hanukkah. And that was their situation until a rescuer or a deliverer came following that very picture of Joseph that we have in our text. Let me just take a quick aside and elaborate on that as our sages of old, the rabbis, did. In a later midrash, the rabbis tell us the Messianic era was to be associated with the Feast of Hanukkah as a time, here's how they describe it, when Israel would bask in the light of the Messiah. Basking in the light, can you see some of the connection they're driving for? And by the way, given that as part of the background, no wonder Levi in his gospel, Matthew chapter 2, verse 2, has the Magi, who were probably Jews, but that's another story. Has the Magi ask, about his star, the light. The light that the very name of our synagogue reminds us of in the daily prayers. Oh God, or Chadash, cause a new light to shine on us. May we be worthy to experience its splendor. Or in the abridged Amidah that we do from time to time. May we get to see the lengthening of the light of the Messiah. So the connection is there. A further connection between light and the Messiah is found in the Midrashic comments of our sages on Isaiah 61, verse 10. Commenting, they say the following. The text teaches that the Holy One, blessed be He, will place on Ephraim, our true Messiah, son of Joseph, remember, a garment, on the son of Joseph, a garment whose splendor will stream forth from world's end to world's end. Garment? A magnificent garment? A coat of many colors? Okay. And Israel will make use of the light of the Messiah. You know, that reminds us, or should remind us, because light is connected to Hanukkah by the rabbis, not only of Hanukkah, but Shabbat. Because during Lecha Dodi, we sing right around verse 4 or 5, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises on you. That's Isaiah chapter 60, verse 1, which goes on a couple verses to say this, arise, shine, your light has come, the glory of the Lord rises on you. Now listen to how that's followed. Nations will come to your light, picture this, and kings, or noble people, to the brightness of your dawn. Camels will cover your land. Young camels will come bearing gold and incense and proclaiming the praise of the Lord. Does that picture sound familiar at all? Anyhow, the text I departed from the Midrash, and it goes on to say, and Israel will make use of the light of the Messiah and will say, in a Hanukkah setting, blessed is the hour in which he was born, Mashiach ben Yosef, son of Joseph. Blessed is the womb from which he came. Blessed is the eye which merits seeing him, shepherds, magi, Hannah, Simeon. The one who brings pardon and forgiveness for Israel. Well noted, Levi, Matthew chapter 1, verse 21. He will be called Yeshua. Why? Because he will bring pardon and forgiveness for Israel. Well, a brief aside back to the original Joseph story. So, what should we think about Joseph? His older brothers were jealous of Joseph's status as the favorite with their father. That jealousy was so evil and powerful that it almost resulted in a murder. But instead was used as a pretext to get rid of Joseph and his dreams. Sending Joseph into exile, however, led directly to the liberation of his family many years later. The young man who left his homeland as a slave rose to the highest administrative position in the land of exile, in his land of exile. And then he used his power to rescue his family instead of turning his back on them in their time of need, as they may well have deserved. And so as an older man, Joseph won the respect of his wait a second. As an older man? How old was he when the story began? How many years was he in Egypt before they showed up? 22. How old was he? No, how old was he now? 30. Gosh, he was an old man, wasn't he? I should be so old. Where was I? When he was an older man, Joseph won the respect of his whole family when he took care of them during the famine in Canaan. He provided them with more than they could have expected. And he reminded them and us of something he understood throughout his life, which Jenny also pointed out. Thank you for the points that you made in preparation for this. What you intended for evil, God turned into good. So when we face Joseph-like experiences, let's remember Joseph's take. And please remember where we found him when we left him in the reading. I'm not going to ask if any of you have ever found yourself in the same kind of situation, and namely in prison. I'm not going to ask that. But when we're in prison-like situations, let's remember the lesson that he derived. What looks like is evil, God can turn into good. He turns curses into blessings. So Joseph is a perfect example of someone we should admire, not criticize. Now, let me conclude with quoting the conclusion to Dr. Patrice's drash from several years ago. Genesis 37:11 says that Jacob, after initially being upset with Joseph's dream, kept the matter in mind. Many years later, Miriam, mother of another gifted young teenager with special insight, also kept these matters, this time about Yeshua, in her mind, her heart, Luke 2:51. Her husband, also named Joseph, was guided by God through his dreams, which provided his family with unity and safety. The gospel writers clearly recognized Yeshua's deep ties with his ancestor Joseph from the very beginning of his story, end quote. And so, we can say, he is truly Ben Yosef, son of Joseph, or Mashiach Ben Yosef, one more than one count. And as such, we take to heart the words. He's the God who turns curses into blessings. Which bad things are you facing now that you're expecting God to turn into blessings? Well, that's a nosy question. And with that, I'll close. Take the next minute of quiet to reflect on the answer to that question, or the possible answer to similar questions at future times when things may look somewhat bleak. You know, sometimes our whole world seems to come across as being rather bleak. In those times, we need to remember the lesson of Joseph, but we also need to anticipate, as we now do, the words of the Elena, pages 102 to 107, which reminds us of a time when all false gods shall be put at an end. Yes, please stand as we face Jerusalem and look forward to that time. The time when all false gods will be put to an end, and the world will in fact be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty. Curses finally turned into blessings, evil into good. That's our anticipation as we respond in pages 102 to 107.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוסף בראשית, שלא עשינו כגוי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שמחנו כהם, וגורלנו כחלומם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינה רוזו בגבי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, הכתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והחשבותה. Elevavecha ki Adonai Hua Elohim Bashamayim Ima'al Ve'al Haaretz Mitachat Eino. It is incumbent upon us to praise the Master of all, to exalt the Creator of the world, for he has made us distinct from the nations and unique among the families of the earth. Our destiny is not like theirs. Our calling is our task. We bow down and acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like him. For he stretched forth the heavens like a tent and established the earth. Truly there is none like our Lord and King. As the Torah says, you shall know this day and reflect in your heart that it is the Lord who is God in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath there is none else. We hope, O Lord our God, to soon behold your majestic glory, when all abominations shall be removed, and all false gods shall be at an end. Then shall the world be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty, and all mankind shall call upon your name. For to you every knee must bow, and every tongue declare that you are God. Reign over us soon and forever. May the kingdom of David's greater Son be established forever. For then shall the words be fulfilled, the Lord shall be king forever, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yehieh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
You may be seated.
Okay, I don't see Matt. Is anyone else instructed to turn off the